how'd you even start teaching music in the first place?
So I started teaching music because of a dog.
When the moment you were like, we need to switch to a brick and mortar, like what was that Canon event?
It was very scary. I had some parents who showed up for a trial lesson and they were like, no, your website looked like so nice and so fancy. Like there's no way this could be in your basement of your house.
Can you talk to me about that perspective shift?
You're not supposed to work in your business, you're supposed to work on your business.
When did you know those shifts needed to happen to get to where you are now with like...
The first one was like I was teaching 100 private lessons by myself. You get pushback from people because of your age?
I have, but they're... So just for some context for the video, like can you describe the music school? Like how, if someone didn't even know you, like how would you describe the music school?
I would say that we are an inclusive environment that helps teach the unteachable and we welcome the misunderstood. We teach ages 4 and up to play in a rock band, piano, guitar, ukulele, drums, bass. I kind of do it all.
Yeah. How many students are we at total right now? Like, do you know the exact number?
We are low with 105.
105. Well, low is pretty subjective.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift.
Yeah. So I mean, the first thing I'd love to know about is like, just like, how did you get into what you're doing? Like, what is that story exactly? Because I've heard a little bit about it, but what is the full story of like, how'd you even start getting into teaching music in the first place?
So I started teaching music because of a dog. I had just adopted like a 3-month-old pitbull. I think by the time we moved from California to Kansas, he was 6 months. My work experience is as a 911 dispatcher prior to this. So, when we moved to Kansas, I was like, oh, I got to get a job, got to pay that student loan. And the thought of having to work a 12-hour dispatcher shift and leave this puppy at home alone was like, I couldn't do it. So I was like, I specifically remember while we were packing up the Penske moving truck that I was like, I really want to take my piano with me. And I hadn't touched a piano in years before that.
Oh, really?
So,
what made you like bring it?
I don't know. Something just said, bring it. And so I remember my stepdad and my ex-husband, they were like pushing this huge old 100-year-old upright up this Penske truck ramp. And so it was a priority that I took it. And I'm glad that I did because I was just sitting there and I was like, wonder if I could teach piano. And at the time,
really?
At the time I was also going for my instructor, like certified flight instructor certification, and so I was learning a lot about teaching and education and things like that. And so I thought, piano would be a good way to experiment with different learning styles and to get experience. So there's a couple things going on.
Okay. How did it first start growing in the first place? Was it just like you telling everyone you started hey, I'm starting to teach piano lessons? Is that how it started?
So we moved here October 1st, 2014. 25 days later, I had my first piano lesson. So it started very quickly, and honestly, all I did was back when Facebook groups were like just taking off. And so I just posted in a few community groups and I was like, hey, I'm going to start teaching piano. Who's interested? And I had 14, 15 students the first week. So it took off pretty quickly in the beginning.
Oh, okay. That was kind of like the same thing for me. I told you how I started teaching piano? I started, so going from high school to college, I applied for music major and I got into music school and everything like that. And I was the type of person that was just like, you can't, like, I'm not going to learn teaching out of a book. Like, I'm going to learn teaching by actually teaching. So I'm going to try to get ahead, start teaching now. I kind of told my parents like, hey, I want to start getting, I don't even remember if I told them that I wanted to get experience or what I think happened is like they came to me and they're like, hey, a family friend was wondering if you could teach them piano. And then I think I was like, I mean, sure, I'll try. I'm up for the challenge. And that was a really big learning experience for sure. Because the only like, yeah, the only teaching experience I had was just being like section leader in band. That's really it, like leadership role. Um, so it just kind of started off as that. And then like other families from church started hearing around, oh, he's teaching piano. Like, I want my kid to learn piano. It started just growing that way as well. And then I started posting like the community groups, and then that started getting more word of mouth. So yeah.
That's
So
funny.
for
Even looking back on it now, like this is the first time I realized like that I had started that business not only 25 days after moving here, but literally not knowing. Like I didn't have a community yet. Like I didn't have friends. Or
oh,
kind of a nice
did you
realization
even
there.
know how to teach piano?
Huh?
Did you even know how to teach piano at that time?
No. To be completely honest, no.
And then like, so then for you, when did it start shifting into your full-time job? Because I'm assuming you were doing other things too while you were starting the lessons, or was that the only thing that you were doing at that time?
So all I was doing was going to school to finish my degree and teaching piano.
Okay.
About 9 months after we moved here, I mean, I was teaching out of my living room, and I was like, "This has got to go. We can't do this." But I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
committed. I wasn't committed to the idea of something permanent, especially because at the time my ex-husband was military, and so I was like, "We're gonna have to move in 3 years. I don't
Makes
want
sense.
anything super permanent." Um, so we kind of upgraded to from a townhouse to an apartment. As crazy as that sounds, but we had like a separate room where parents and could sit and not be in my living room, and
Mm-hmm.
the room was just bigger, and so that was kind of the first tier, and then I would say a year or two after that. My ex-husband was trying to get out of the military, and I was like, oh crap, like we're gonna be stuck here and this is all gonna be on me for a minute. And so that's when we decided to buy a house, and I was like teaching out of my basement, and then like it's just a whole thing. It just kind of
Okay, upgraded to the basement.
it sounds so bad, but I mean we had a waiting room, we had a band room, we had a piano
Uh-huh.
room, and then we upgraded to brick and mortar.
Yeah. So what was that process like? How did you know when each shift needed to happen? Was that like just based on the student base, or was that based on something else? Like, how did you, yeah, when did you know those shifts needed to happen to get to where you are now with like Miss Emily's music school?
Yeah, so the first one was like I was teaching 100 private lessons by
Oh,
myself a week. And
dang.
I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I raised prices exponentially, like by $90 a month per kid,
Hmm.
expecting everybody to drop just so I could have like a break in my schedule. And not that many people dropped. Oh crap, now what? And that's where group classes kind of came in, and deluxe classes,
Hmm.
so that I could get more in a class without killing myself working 8 hours a day. So working 8 hours a day to a typical person, that's fine, but when you're a piano
Yeah.
player,
Yeah, I'm sure like whoever's watching this knows, because it's like it's not like a 9 to 5. Like you're actively like it's like you're using your energy to
yeah,
teach.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
so invested, and every kid is different, and yes.
Hmm.
Um, so it was kind of that point, and then the next point was when I was getting inquiries like, I really wish you guys taught guitar. And so that's
Mm.
from me teaching in the basement to brick and mortar, because I had hired someone, and apparently, I mean, two of us were running lessons out of my basement. It was crazy. And come to find out, that was against city ordinance, so we're group
Oh,
lessons.
really?
So yeah. So I was like, well, if I find something, I'll if it works with our budget and it works, like, it takes a unique space to be able to run a music school in a brick and mortar. So the perfect spot just kind of came to me, and that's when we decided to go that route.
Nice. How long have you been at that spot for?
Had the brick and mortar.
Yeah.
So I think we moved to that model. I want to say 2017, 2018. And
Mm-hmm.
then we moved to a new location in the beginning of 2023.
Oh, okay. So this is not like the one you're at now is not the original one. Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So for you, like when you're kind of like in the thick of it, of like you got a bunch of students, like when the moment you were like, we need to switch to a brick and mortar, like what were kind of like the that main like what was that canon event that was just like something needs to change or like we need to move? Like what was that experience like? What happened for you there?
It was very scary when you start
How
dealing
so?
with, like the pressure of like, oh, this is against city ordinance, and you've got the liability of someone else teaching under you. There was just a lot of fear, and I'm not saying it was a fear-based decision, but I needed to protect some things, and so it was kind of fear-based. But we were
Mm-hmm.
just growing faster than we could keep up with. And I think I'd
Yeah.
actually just hired a third. So it'd be me and two other teachers before, like right before we moved into the brick and mortar. And it was like, I can't be teaching. And I think one of the, and this was definitely one of the things, is I had some parents. I remember one specifically. They showed up for a trial lesson and they were like, I don't know if we're in the right place, like at my house. And I was like, yeah,
Oh, oh.
piano lessons. And they're like, no, your website looked like so nice and so fancy. Like, there's no way this could be in your basement of your house. And so I was like, oh, if my marketing's up here and we're presenting down here, like that's a problem. People were almost disappointed.
I
And so
see, I see.
that was part of that turning point.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So then, like, what did the music school like then become after that? Because I know it looked a lot different than what it looks like now. We could talk about that in a little bit too. But before we started even working together, like, what did it look like?
That's a good question. Um, it was very, I don't want to say chaotic, but it was chaotic. There wasn't a lot of systems or structures. There was, more creative freedom on my part. Like I got to just be the teacher and not have to worry about the big day-to-day stuff. So it was more chaotic but more artistic, I think, in a way, with more creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a little, it's still chaos, but it's structured chaos, with a purpose.
Yeah. What about like the model of the music school? Like at the if you were to say like the peak of like the of expansion, like how many teachers did you even have? Like how many people were working at the music school? How many students did you have like before?
So I would say about a year into the first commercial spot, we had, I think the highest I ever had was 7 employees, almost 200 students. It was a lot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was incredibly
What were
stressful.
you doing? Like what was that day to day life look like?
I don't remember a lot of it. I was a little stressed out and not mentally okay, but it was chaos. Every day was putting out a fire.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel now like I had control then. While I had systems, I wasn't very present because of the overwhelm. I just kind of
Mm-hmm.
designed and shut down to everything.
Gotcha. Did you learn anything about
Yeah.
yourself personally through that experience?
Yeah, I definitely threw myself into learning, attempting to be a better leader. Don't think I will
Mm-hmm.
ever be the greatest leader ever, but I'm better than I was, and I'm continuing, to pour into that aspect. But definitely learned a lot about leadership, and that, you know, chasing student numbers is not always what's best for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now I guess I'm trying to like follow the timeline here. So
It's a long
where's the
one.
point where yeah, where's the point when we first started working together? Like where was that at for your journey?
When we first started working together, don't know. This was, I mean, it was a couple years ago. I think it was after
Mm-hmm.
COVID. So I think it was probably out like after COVID and right when we were starting to see like the after effects of COVID. I think a lot of businesses saw it in the moment. We thrived during 2020. That was our
Nice.
best year. But it took about, I would say, a year, almost 2 years for us to start to see the effects of what that did to the economy and to people's mental health. And so I think that's when we first started working together.
Yeah, yeah. I think the first time, yeah, that first time was like a good experience too. I remember a lot of it was focused in on like studio growth, like music school growth, and I remember you got like 30 students in 30 days, right?
I was like
You
42 in 30 days. It was a lot.
42. Yeah. What was that experience like? Tell me about that.
It was
Like in your
overwhelming. I'm
perspective.
not gonna lie. Like it was so overwhelming to have that many students to just that. I mean, that's that many phone calls with a parent to talk to them
Mm-hmm.
and get to know them and to make sure we're a good fit. That's 42 kids to connect with. Um, that it was a lot. That's all the onboarding. That's it's a lot.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
So I
grateful
remember.
for it. It did wonders for my ego and my confidence, but it's a lot.
Hmm. And anything else you remember about that first experience of us working together? I feel like that was like the biggest. I remember that was like the biggest, one of the biggest wins that we had together. But anything else in that experience before the second time?
Like I said, that was a really long time ago, and I don't remember much. But I do. I loved the support aspect, and just, and I think that was when we were kind of down mentally. We questioning, is this going to survive? What are we going to do? And just having that support system was huge.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm glad we're talking now because this is like kind of like you coming back, and this is like the second time we've worked together, and I feel like we've worked this time we're working together in a different capacity in a different areas of the business and different areas of your life. So like for you, what were some of those challenges that you had when the second time that we started working together? Like this time coming around, like what were those biggest challenges that you had that you needed to solve?
The main one was I'm an accountability. I need accountability. Like I always have to be working with someone, and yeah, I won't get into that, but there was definitely that need. I was kind of faced with like running some numbers. We just moved into that new location, and I was panicking. Numbers were not looking good. I had employee problems.
Mm,
It was trending in the right direction. I just knew that I needed someone to help me fine tune things and to see it from a different perspective with a fresh mindset.
yeah. So what do you feel like solving those problems now? What do you feel like you did that were like the biggest shifts for you that allowed you to get to where you are now?
The biggest one was stepping back into teaching. So prior to
Mm-hmm.
this, and probably even the first time that we worked together, I completely stepped away from my business. So I was not teaching. I had a manager running it. I really only handled things if, I mean, really, I didn't really do anything. Like I'd market every
Mm,
now and then, but I mean, I wasn't doing anything. When we started working together, I felt it took a minute, but I felt very supported to step back into teaching. That wasn't viewed as a negative by you or your community. It's actually, I think a lot of the teachers in your community are still actively teaching. And so that was reassuring and refreshing. But
mm-hmm.
I think that was the big one, is being able to step back in and view my school from that community mindset too. That
Yeah.
was huge.
Can you talk to me about that perspective shift? Because the first time you mentioned that to me, that was a new thing for me to hear. I didn't know how many music school owners felt detached from their business and felt like they had to be away from it for to be successful? Like, what was kind of like that old mindset, and how did it shift into a new paradigm shift that you have now? What was that like?
The first mindset was drilled into me by a coach in our industry, and the quote that I think a lot of us would say is, "You're not supposed to work in your business, you're supposed to work on your business." And so anything that was in your business was viewed as a failure. Anytime
Mm,
an employee called me with a problem that they shouldn't have been calling me with, like I associated that with a fail, and so like I would just spiral. And so
mm,
business became like a huge negative in my life. Like I hated it, dreaded it. And so from that to now, I just feel the freedom to make the business whatever I want it to be. And it's always changing. And so what it is now may not be what I need it to be in 6 months, and that's okay. And then
yeah.
just the community aspect. I think that's a huge part of it that we never had before, because I was so detached. My name's on the freaking building, and I wasn't
Yeah.
there. People didn't even know what I like.
Nice.
Who's Miss Emily? I had another teacher whose name was Emily or Emma, and we were like, they're like, "Oh, you're Miss Emily." Like no one knew who I was. I was never there, and now the parents and kids have direct line to me, and it improved so many things. My teachers feel more attached, secure. It's just a good thing.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm kind of curious now, like for you as a music school owner, you've been a music school owner for like a long time now.
This
Like,
will be our
how has your 10th year? Congrats.
year. Yep.
There we go. So for you, like, especially with other music school owners that are probably watching this right now, like, how do you view your music school, or like, how has the music school owner mindset changed for you now? That's probably different than how other people are viewing, how other teachers are viewing it.
So a couple different things. Two things. Instead of this being a job or a business or, as I said before, like a huge negative part in my life, it's now such a wonderful opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to create. It's an opportunity for me to connect. It's an opportunity for me to change the world. Whereas before it was like, oh my God, I have to get out of bed and go do this. I was having to nap before lessons just to mentally prepare before. And now, like, I'm ready to go. Let's go teach. Like,
Hmm.
huge. And then,
Yeah, what's crazy is that like you're technically working more than before,
yeah,
but it feels less draining than before too.
yes, definitely more energized now with it because the guilt is gone.
Mm. And what was that second thing that you're going to mention?
I think just emphasizing the art part of it. I get to go back to like the basement days where I get to explore more and create more, and oh, like we're gonna add more games and just the more creative side of teaching. I think we kind of lose the fact that we can still be artists in business even if we're not performing and playing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's been a big shift for me too, especially last year. It's like I feel like the whole thought of musicians are not great business people has brainwashed me, has brainwashed other musicians, especially in music school too. There's a there's lots of different majors in my music school, like music ed, music performance. There's also music business as well.
Mm.
But I feel like a lot of the students in there just felt like I'm not cut out for business. Like it's just not for me. And over the past year, I've learned that it's quite the opposite. And I feel like us as musicians, us as creatives, we are the perfect people for business,
Yeah.
because we got to be creative in the ways we solve our problems. We got to be creative in the ways that we share our views with the world as well. And that's like the whole point of business, is to find creative solutions to things. And like that's why I believe that like music teachers are perfect for business. We just have to be able to find that. It's kind of like for us when we teach our students, everybody can be a great musician. We just have to like find it within ourselves. So I'm glad that you had like that shift for you as well.
Yeah.
So all of those shifts, what has that resulted into now? Like what would you say are the biggest results that we've had together of the second time working together?
Ooh. There's a lot. I think the mindset shift on being able to teach, being able to create, just even the simplicity of marketing. Like, we want to make it so complicated, but I think you and your program make it so simple. And again, like you take marketing and you make it what we need in the moment. Like, hey, if you're feeling the creativity right now, like roll with it. But if it's like a low energy day, like that's okay.
Yeah. How's that shown up for you specifically? Like, what does that look like? It's like simplicity for you. What does that look like for in your process for marketing?
Like this last couple weeks, I've been so busy helping other people with their stuff. And instead of feeling guilty about it, I'm like, no, I'm just going to post one post per week instead of my normal three, if I'm feeling it. One post this week, and it's huge. The post I had just made yesterday, it's gotten quite the traffic, and that was my one post for the week, and that's fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was that for? Was that for the adult piano classes?
No, this was
or was it something else?
We're starting a 50 free trial lessons in 50 days campaign again.
Oh, I did see that one.
I ruffled some feathers.
I know, that was a good post. Wait, so what happened? Like, update me on that.
Oh no. So, for context, I had met a local music teacher in the other town that our second location is in. Very small town. Very, very, very small town. And the first thing out of her mouth was, "Do you have a music ed degree?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I have trauma. I've had bad teachers. I hated music lessons. Like, I have trauma. I don't have a music ed degree." And she was like, right?
I have both.
She was like, "Oh, okay, nice to meet you," and like walked off. And I'm like, that was the weirdest interaction ever. And like, we were decorating for a party, and every decoration I put up, I was just playing that back in my head. And you emphasized so much there for a couple months, like, if it's in your head, get it out. Like, somebody needs to hear it right now. And so I sat down that night. I was exhausted and slept 3 hours that night. And so I just wrote this post out, and it was I called this woman out, not by name, but I was like, hey, like, this is a situation I had, and people like that view your child as a student. I view your child as a musician. We shouldn't be locked in by, our accomplishments like that. We have intrinsic worth. And yeah, in a small town, that post took off. Got
nice
comments. The teacher actually reached out to me in DMs, and I haven't opened it yet. It's all bad.
I mean, it shows the power. I mean, how many trial lessons did you get from that, though?
30. Yeah. My one post, and yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the power in. I mean, that's the power in what you've been doing already. I feel like you are just very polarizing and very true to yourself and unapologetically Emily. Obviously I definitely don't condone like people sending you hate or anything like that. But I do support like you being yourself and you not being afraid to ruffle feathers, because as much as it's repelled the wrong people, it has attracted the right people to you, and the people who do believe that.
That was one thing I really struggle with today. Like, because the whole Super Bowl last night, I'm like getting messages and stuff. I'm like, man, I was getting so down. I was like, we preach a safe place and inclusive environment at our school. Like, was that post kind? Was that post empathetic? And like, I've gone back and forth a couple times now, and I'm like, no, because I'm sticking up for the misunderstood person. And so, yes, it is very true.
Yeah. Yeah, can you share more about your mission, your vision? Because that's also a big thing that's been able um, to kind of fuel your growth too. And I feel like a lot of people here might not know that yet. So, how would you describe the mission, the vision for your music school?
I really want to pull up the exact. I don't have it memorized because my memory is terrible, but I do want to pull it up if that's okay.
Yeah, feel free to find it. Yeah,
Um, because I did the whole Simon Sinek, uh, Just Cause
the
thing.
yeah,
Okay, so at our music school, we teach the unteachable, we welcome the misunderstood, we create safe spaces, we set everyone up to succeed, we build confidence, we create joy, we make music. And so the cool thing about that Just Cause statement is that the way it was written was almost at a cadence in itself and had music in it. And when I read it to our employees, everybody got tears in their eyes because we were finally all like we were on the same path. We understood everything.
yeah. And for you, what were some of those experiences and stories of the families that you've gotten on that have really resonated with that and aligned with that as well? Because you've had some pretty powerful like stories about that.
Yeah, we because of the environment that we create, because all of our teachers are uh, neurodivergent themselves, we have a safe place for students who learn a little bit differently than the standard student. I've had people. Oh, a couple stories come to mind. I had one mom during the onboarding phone call. She was like, my kid just doesn't have a place. He's got all these diagnoses, and he doesn't have friends. He doesn't have his place. And after his first lesson, he came out to the waiting room, and he was like, I have friends now. And like, I'm sobbing in the waiting room. She's sobbing. We're all crying. And then the other one was actually on an onboarding call, and the mom herself started crying because this is the opportunity that she wanted for herself as a child, and she wants the best for her child now. And just learning her story through that, and learning her story since now that I'm back in my school. I've learned that she's working on her doctorate because her mom told her that she would only ever have to marry a doctor. She could never be one herself. And so, just that whole family and that whole experience is just kind of sums up what we've done here in this last year.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Man, my heart's like melting right now.
I know. It's tough. And I don't think I would ever get to witness those things if I weren't working back in my music school.
Oh, really?
And that makes me like sad. Like think of all the stories and people I missed out on before because my school was a bad thing.
Yeah. So like how else has this shift how else have these shifts like impacted you in other ways like financially, mentally, physically, like what other ways has this impacted you yourself?
I don't know.
Because like obviously like we talked about what it looked like before, you're not at like 200 students, 7 employees anymore. It's a lot smaller, but it feels a lot better as well. Like how do the finances feel? How does it feel to be out of the music school? Because also feel free to talk more about what you're working on outside the music school that we've been working on together as
Yeah.
well.
So I now have that more now that the creative wheel has started turning with music lessons and being back in the school. That has given me the confidence and the desire to create in other ways. So I launched my other business, my dog training business, and that has taken off. It's crazy, taken off.
Yeah, taking off. Like, how would you describe taking off?
I can't keep up. I matched my music school income last week or last month for like take home.
Nice.
Yeah. Um, I think that relationships have improved, but I don't know which one of those comes first. Am I happier and so relationships have improved, or do I just have supportive relationships now? So I don't feel guilty about being in the school. And then yeah, I don't feel guilt around my school, and then that just leaks out into every aspect of my life. Like, I don't feel guilty for sleeping until noon, which I did today. I don't feel guilty to walk with my dog. Like, those things don't happen.
Yeah.
And I think
What for?
the best compliment I got was I want to say it was like last month. My mom had come over, and this has been a trying last year, right? And so she was like, your energy just seems better. And because business is such a huge part of my life, like, it is because the business is more simple now, and I've found my joy in it again.
I love that. I guess like now, looking back or talking to any other music school owners that were in your position before, like what maybe tactically or mindset wise, like what would you teach them?
Cool.
Like what would you do? What would you teach your past self? Like what are some of those lessons?
I think the big one is decide what you want out of life, like your ideal rich life, and make the music school get you that life. Think crazy, think big, and go for it. Like, it's not crazy. It really isn't. I have a music school that's based on no practicing. Like, that's crazy. It works. It's working for us and my demographic. And so whatever you have in your mind, like, it speaks to someone. And then the other thing would be storytelling. People want to hear your story. It's how they connect with you. It's what sets you apart from your competitor. And don't put enough in that. We don't.
So for well, first off, I just want to share my thoughts. Like I completely agree. Like there's so many different ways to be able to grow your music studio, your music school. Like I always kind of tie it back to the problem that I had where when I was full with my music studio, like I couldn't get to that position that you were in, where like I like teaching 100 private lessons a week. Like there's no way I could do that at that time of my life because I had like my degree that I was working on as well. And I couldn't get to that point where I had a brick and mortar because I didn't have enough students to warrant that, because I didn't have the time to do that. But I felt like that was my only path to growing. So I went down the route of not growing at all. I just kind of settled. And if I knew that there was like a different path to growing, I would have been more creative to find that solution. Because it's always a little different, right? If you have a big music school with a bunch of employees, you are essentially creating a certain type of lifestyle for yourself. You're creating that owner mentality, which is great for some people, but not great for others, and that's okay. And I feel like that's come up a lot during our journey together. It's like, and that's okay. Like you can grow in this way. That's okay. You don't have to be teaching. You don't have to be managing everyone. You can actually be teaching, and that's okay. And then the sharing stories too. That's also been a big emphasis for me as well. And the reason why I started doing these interviews and doing these like podcast YouTube videos is because I just want to be able to highlight stories, and stories is honestly the easiest way to share value. It's so easy. Like I don't really have to like come up with a lesson plan to share my story. I just share. And for me, my biggest aha moment with that was when I was at that retreat, and that intensive that, for my coaching program. And I was hanging out with all these 6-7 figure entrepreneurs, and I was a little bit intimidated because I was like, I'm the youngest person. I'm one of the youngest people here. My business is not one of the biggest around in this like space. Like, who am I to who am I to teach someone else something valuable who is at a higher level than me. But I realized just like conversations, I was learning a lot from just hearing these people's stories, but they were telling me that they were learning a lot from my story as well. And you know, I had to come back to the mindset that I needed before, whereas like I am where I'm at for a reason, and like I shouldn't think of my age or my experience as insufficient, right? Oh, I'm so young. Like who are these older people? Like who am I to teach these older people who have way more experience? But in their eyes, they're like, this person's so young. Like I have so much to learn from this person, because how is this person here when I wasn't there at that person's age? So, so that taught me the power in like sharing stories, and that's something you do really well. And I feel like that's like a huge like attribute to your success right there.
It's such a huge part of it, but we're all so scared to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said,
Why do you feel like that?
it is the easiest. Vulnerability is hard. It's our underbelly that we're just showing. And I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, but I mean, we're afraid to let people in. We're afraid to let people see we're human.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the part that people
100%.
People remember and feel.
Yeah. So I know we're working on it together already, but feel free to share like what's next for you. What's the future? What's the future vision look like for Emily?
Yeah, this year the future version looks like me hustling a lot. I'm going to start teaching at our other location, which is 40 minutes away, 1 day a week. Try to build that up again. I'm going to focus on our business here, just kind of adding some fun stuff like concerts and band performances together, and dog training.
There we go.
All this year. It's basically 3 businesses, but you know.
But yeah, it's fun. It's fun. That's where it needs to be. Like running a music school needs to be fun again, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that you wanted to add? Anything else you wanted to share before we close this off?
I don't think so. I do want to ask you real quick though, just because you brought it up.
Yeah.
Do you get pushback from people because of your age? Because I've heard people say that about you before, like other coaches.
Oh, really?
Say like, he's so young. What does he know? But I've never considered your age like that. So do you get pushback?
I have, but they're from like really like they're from really weird people. So it's not like I was gonna take their criticism into consideration anyway. But but I would say it's more about I'm trying to think of like specific stories or instances about that. I feel like I've always attracted the people that aligned with me, and that's what I really love, and that's why I have a community where I look forward to all of our one-on-ones. I look forward to the community calls. I honestly wake up and get really excited about it, because I used to have people in the community that didn't align with me, where it was just really draining, and there'd be differences in beliefs and things like that. And I feel like that's where it really comes down to, is differences in beliefs that make the burnout happen, because it's so draining to try to like change someone's belief that doesn't align. And I'm not here to like bash any other beliefs, but I'm here to like respect it. And if someone feels like they need someone older than them to learn from, then that's cool.
That's okay.
But that's fine. Yeah. But outright, like people saying that to me, I haven't really gone that much. So that's why I know it's like more of it's more of an imposter syndrome thing for me. That happened a lot in the beginning, of course, like when I was like less experienced and things like that too. I feel like the thing that has helped me a lot get through that imposter syndrome was this past year, like my year 2023, of learning to, there's really 2 learning lessons for me. It was practicing what I preach, and then also um, learning, like really diving into the creative and spiritual aspect of business and music. So the first one, like practicing what I preach, that's what like we talk about with like becoming an irresistible music teacher, because I realized that it's not just it's it's not enough to just have the right marketing message. It's not enough just to say the right things, because now once you get the clients, you have to be able to back that up. So having the leadership, having the conviction to know what you like, know what you know is so important. And that's where I've leaned into it now. Like now I always just teach what I know. That's it. It's like you've done this before, you know it, you should feel really confident about it because you've done it and it's worked for you. And there's lots of lessons in that as well. But just practicing what I preach, being able to actually be a musician so that I can lead other music teachers to have a life where they can teach music and follow and still have time to fulfill their passion. Like that's what I need to do so that I can lead people to get to that lifestyle. If I'm not doing that, then like, then really like, who am I to be able to teach others to do that if I'm not doing it myself? And then the second one, the creative and the spiritual side. We've talked about the book, The Creative Act. Like that was a big shift for me as a producer, because the question that I gave my coach was like, how do I get to like, the artists that I look up to, like the really big artists, how do I get to their level? Is it just like, they're just really good at music, or like, what's the shift? And he's like, the question that you're trying to ask is like, these big artists, the artists you look up to, how do they get their music to deeply resonate with their audience? And it's about the deeper meaning behind it. It's like, what message are you trying to convey with your music? And being able to read the Creative Act and all these things kind of like tying together, I'm like, this is the same way that I should be approaching my business as well, because it's not a method of making music. It's not a method of running a business. It's a way of living. And the way that I live, it needs to be congruent. It needs to be aligned in every single part of my life, whether it is music or whether it is business, right? I'm not going to act like a musician when I'm making music and act like a business owner when I'm running my business. I need to be myself throughout the whole thing. So that was like the big shift. And I feel like the big shift that like when the big shift for music school owners, when they are going from, yes, I have a lot of students, but am I actually enjoying my business? Am I having fun in it? Do I see myself growing in this? Is this serving me? Right? The moment we feel like this way of living is not serving me anymore is the moment where we should shift. And it has a lot more to do than, of course, we have the strategy that we work on, the simplicity aspect, simplifying the business model, simplifying your marketing, but it's also like, what is the message? What is the mission we're trying to carry with our music school? What is the like the deeper meaning behind it all, which is the thing that makes the biggest shift for us.
Yeah.
I love this.
What you said about it's a way of living. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. Feel free to take it. Cool. So lastly, anyone here that of course wants to reach out to you, where's the best place to do that? I'll include all those links here, but what do you feel like the best place to reach you is?
Just my personal Facebook page.
Cool. I can shoot that in the description for this. But yeah, I just wanted to say, always a pleasure being able to share your story. Always a pleasure being able to hear it. I tell this to my coach too, but I hear the same stories that he shares over and over and over again, and it never gets tiring. So same thing for you. It never gets tiring. Appreciate you for sharing it, and look forward to the future for you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. This was such a great opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun.